Welcome to Wild Women. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Eileen, and she's living in Winnipeg right now. But she's going to join us to talk about mental health and her experiences with sexual abuse. So, Eileen, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we ask a question or two?
Yeah, sure. So like you guys said, I'm in Winnipeg. I'm a new mental health advocate, like new into the community. I just started becoming an advocate about a year ago when I was on my school campus. There was an opportunity to share your mental health experiences, and I decided to do that. And then from there, I just got more involved with the community.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So what experiences are you willing to share that have inspired you to become a mental health advocate?
Mm-hmm. Um, I listened to one of your guys' videos, and both of you talk a lot about like personal experience. And I think that's huge. I think that's like the driving force for my passion, both with like my own personal mental health experiences and just with my family and close loved ones who I've seen go through the system and go through like different illnesses. But I guess what was the big movement for me and like shift into the community was I was sexually assaulted back in 2013 when I was traveling and couch surfing Europe. So I went through trial after 7 years, and it was like a very long process. And I think going to trial really like fueled my passion for like having a voice and like how a voice can actually like, you know, um, it always matters and you can really fight with your voice. So I think that's the driving force behind my advocacy.
Mhm. Do you think you could elaborate a little bit more on the sexual abuse trial? I know
Mm-hmm.
it was basically like an international trial, right? Like people were
Yeah.
working globally.
Yeah. So in 2013, I was traveling with a friend. And are you guys familiar with couch surfing?
I
Yes.
heard about it.
Yeah. So, in case like some viewers aren't familiar, it's when you join like an internet community of travelers and you can stay with hosts for free. And the whole thing there is that it's other like-minded people who love traveling, and you cook them meals from like your country to show thanks instead of paying them. And then the hope is that when they travel, you'll host them. So it's a cool idea, but like there's always risks there.
Mm.
And so we stayed with a man named Maglio. He was a police officer actually. And we stayed 2 nights. The first night, he was being quite aggressive with us, as in like trying to, can like pressure us into drinking and stuff, but nothing quite happened significantly that night. Um, we were like a little worried because he did try to go into there was four of us girls, so he tried to go into the other two girls' room. But the second night, he drugged us, and years later we found out it was with like lorazepam and wine. And we all passed out completely, and I woke up twice, both in the morning. Once it was like very brief and I just saw him like lying there in bed with me and my friend, and then the second time I woke up he was walking out in his underwear. So yeah. And I reported it on his couch surfing profile to warn other girls, and like within like I don't even know, like a couple minutes, I had several girls being like, the same thing happened to me, the same thing happened to me. So one of those girls, she was very like headstrong in a very inspirational way, and she kind of took the reins and she was like, can you give me a list of all the names of the girls who messaged you if they're okay with it? From there, she got in touch with IRPI, which is like, it stands for investigative reporting, prod IR project Italy. um,
Oh, it was in Italy.
yeah, yeah. So it was like an investigative journalism team. So
Mm.
it wasn't help from the cops at all. So they kind of released all of our stories. They really believed us and like could see how much we needed the help. And then they provided us with free lawyers, and we all flew back to Padova where it happened and fought in court.
So you said the whole process took 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
Was there a lot of like back and forth between the countries?
Yeah, so me and my friend reported it in Austria, and like literally the police there victim blamed us. So they were like, why would you couch surf? And
Mm.
then their next question was like, shouldn't you know it's dangerous?
Mm.
And then their next question was like, why didn't you report in Italy? And we're like, he's a police officer. Like we're gonna go in and like tell all his friends. Like we don't trust the system after this, but we trust another country's system, we thought. And they told us they couldn't do anything for us because we weren't Austrian citizens and the crime didn't happen in Austria.
Mm.
So I reported it to the Winnipeg police. They basically said, do you have a lawyer? I said, no, like at the time I didn't, because I didn't trust IRPI. I didn't know who they were.
Mm.
Um, so I said I didn't. Like an international lawyer is so expensive. And they said, well, you know, if you don't have that, there's not much we can do for you. Um, so yeah, but then we went back and forth with the IRPI for 7 years. They got us to write like witness statements. They got us to scan our passports for our identity. They got in touch with a public prosecutor free of charge. And yeah.
That's
Wow.
amazing. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now coming back from something like that and like reclaiming your own identity after must have been, difficult itself, like, and then having to like live through that trial after it had already happened. It must have been like reliving the experience again. What kind of things did you like adopt or like um begin in your routine to try and like maintain mental clarity, awareness, and basically maintain a positive state of mind during all that?
I appreciate you even say that because I feel like um, even though it was so long ago, I feel like my own self guilt for being like, why am I like not over it? But the thing is, like, it's a trauma, it stays with you, it's
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for me, I'm really bad with routine, honestly. Like, I go for walks every day to get that like peace and calm. But what really helped me was going for professional help, um, and going to like group therapies, individual therapy. Um, I ended up in the psych ward for a little while. So all that help gave me a routine and made me check in with myself and my emotions and my behaviors and actions and how I process the trauma. So I think for me personally, I just needed that guidance. I needed the professional help. And I think a lot of people can benefit from professional help.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of tools did they give you? Like, if there was like one or two things that you think were like the most beneficial for you, what would they be?
Ooh, that's hard. Um, Something that I is like it's an ongoing learning for me is boundaries. So I think I mentioned to you guys like I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder just about like last October. Um, and that can be brought about by either childhood trauma or um, significant trauma as well, or you can just be more susceptible and you know be born with like the illnesses, the diagnoses. But so just like learning healthy boundaries. People who have borderline personality disorder tend to have issues around boundaries. So I'm an over helper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I get very involved in my family's life. And if you're a close friend going through something, especially a trauma or a crisis, because I think I have had them in my life, I'm like, oh, I've been through this, I know what to do, but like, I'm not a professional and it's not in my control.
Mm-hmm.
So I think them teaching me about boundaries and like how to have healthy boundaries, how to know what's in your control and what's out of your control, and have time for yourself, and how to like step away from a crisis and realize like there's not, yeah, basically that you can't control it. So boundaries and control, I think, really helped me.
Yeah. You mentioned that you tend to be very involved with like family and close friends. How has that impacted your mental health?
I guess I can see both sides to it. When I wasn't doing well, I wasn't in a position to help, even though I tried to. And part of why I'm so into mental health is because I have family members who have severe illnesses, such as like severe depression and addictions. And I've had uncles who've committed suicide. So I've kind of seen that. And so when I wasn't doing well, seeing them go through a difficult time, it did impact me negatively, because a lot of the situations that arise were crisis situations. So with my behaviors of trying to be in control of everything, I thought I could control the crisis. So when I wasn't doing well, it impacted me worse. But now that I'm like healing, and I would say I'm the best I'm doing since all of this has happened, I've had a lot of positive support from my family, and I have given them positive support because we see each other grow and we see each other get the help that we need.
There's a lot of myth around sexual assault, and the system victim blames all the time. And like you said, like trauma impacts your body. Like it's so intense that it can change your DNA. So how are you able after to cope with that victim blaming?
Yeah, I'm happy you actually mentioned that, because that is so true. A lot of people can be like, yeah, it impacts you a lot, but like it's happened so long ago, but it does change your DNA. I actually went for a study where it was a part of bringing this type of therapy into Winnipeg. So it was with students from the University of Manitoba and healthcare professionals. And they did a scan of our brain to see the effects before and after therapy. So things I learned in that therapy was it wasn't quite cognitive behavioral therapy.
Is it like DBT?
No, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
So it was like for complex, it was for complex PTSD, but it was a CBT kind of model. So they looked at and made us reflect on our thoughts, our behaviors, and the negative and positive behaviors we have to that, and how our thoughts really are ingrained to how our body feels. Like when you feel disgusted, your stomach has butterflies. When you're mad, you clench your jaw. That affects your muscles and your shoulders, and then how you can change those thoughts, like how to challenge those thoughts. So I really like positive affirmations. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but they would give us worksheets where you had to write down all your thoughts. So before I would be like, oh, I'm unworthy, I feel dirty. And I felt all these things because of what I went through. And then they would make me change that. And I thought it was like the cheesiest thing ever. I was like, this isn't going to work. And then I'd have to write, I'm worthy. Like for I'm dirty, I would say like I'm beautiful or I'm innocent or something like that. And like, I'll show you. I have like positive affirmations written down.
I love it.
Here. So like every day I read them, and then when I truly believe something, I take it off and then I write a new one. So yeah. But they did a lot of cool exercises at like it would take forever to go through all of them, but that was one that stood out for me.
I love it. Such a good idea.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about borderline personality disorder?
Yeah, it's quite new to me. Like I'm still learning about it myself as I'm going for treatment. But yeah, it's a very complex personality disorder. Um, a lot of it deals with like avoidant behavior, fear of abandonment, real or imagined. So it could be real abandonment in your life, or it could be like, I feel like, my significant other, I don't have one, but like if I had one, my significant other is going to leave me, or, a close friend is going to leave me. And then you act out rashly to that. So it's like an emotional dysregulation, and it's very extreme highs and lows. Like there's a book called Walking on Eggshells and I Hate You, I Love You. And those are both about like borderline personality disorder. Like it's very black and white distorted.
Yeah, they call it splitting. So
Like,
interesting fact. Like I wasn't ever diagnosed with it because I was too young to like get diagnosed, and I went through DBT,
oh
and it
no.
helped me so much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, like I'm doing so much better now thanks to therapy.
Yeah, I love the DBT program. Like
It saved my life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's super intense, but it's worth it.
Can we talk about DBT a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So there's
What does DBT stand for? Let's start with that.
Okay, it stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. Yeah. And then so there's like, it's from Monday to Friday every day for 5 weeks, because the hospitals don't have their or like their day hospital up and running. Like we can't go in, it's via Zoom. And then it's for an hour and a half every day, which seems like it's not a lot, but it's so emotionally draining that it like consumes you. You have a lot of homework too. And the modules that we learn there are goal setting, anger management, self-esteem, communication and assertiveness, and the last one, rational emotive therapy. And then they also every Thursday and Friday do harm reduction and mindfulness. So another trait of borderline personality is that there's a lot of self-harm inflicted. Yeah.
And one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't understand is that self-harm can manifest in a lot of different actions, right?
Yeah.
Not just cutting yourself. It could be pulling out your hair. It could be over-exercising. It could be not eating enough. It could be, like there's so many different. And for like a lot of the time, like people who do have borderline personality disorder, even if they do go through the type of therapy that you're going through, they may have to do like a different type of therapy combined with it, depending on what type of self-harm is with their borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
So it can get really, really complicated, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and even more if you put into consideration the fact that you have CPTSD.
Yeah.
Because that's also difficult to treat if you only have one kind of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Sarah said, like there's been some times where I've done 2 therapies at the same time, and then other times where they're like, no, we're just focusing on one. So, yeah.
How do you feel about your self-growth during this experience, and how would you describe like your mental health now?
I would say my mental health is the best it's been since the sexual assault. I suffered with depression and anxiety when I was younger, but it was much more in control than it got when I was an adult. And I would say self-growth has been like transformative. Like I believe I'm a stronger, more confident person. It's given me passion towards being a feminist and an advocate. And yeah, I feel like that it's really helped my self growth.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, the therapy and the professional help that is.
Yeah, definitely. What
Mhm.
kind of things do you do as a mental health advocate? You mentioned that there's something in school that you're a part of.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a group called Peace of Mind at the University of Manitoba. So they're for advocating for mental health resources and on campus, sorry. And I've done 2 talks with them. Um, I've done a talk to a college here at or in Winnipeg for support workers. So they just wanted to learn more about diagnoses and like personal experiences. I volunteer with Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba, which has really helped me. I used to go there for myself, and then I like fell in love with the organization and started volunteering. Yeah, I've had a few like interviews like this. Right now, I'm working on a project with a friend for Manitoba's 150 Youth Ambassador program. So it's going to be on sexual assault.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, who would you say are some of like your biggest supporters, like the most important people in your life, like when it comes to maintaining a good state of mind and your mental, emotional, and even physical health too?
I definitely say like hands down my brother. He's my younger brother. He has gone through some experiences himself, and we both really help each other out, and we both have received professional help where we can keep each other on track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And how do you make sure not to get triggered? Because sometimes I feel when you're close with someone that's also struggling, sometimes that can really, again, comes back to boundaries, right?
Yes, definitely. So for to not get triggered, I definitely enforce my boundaries way more than I used to. I practice mindfulness. Yeah, so mindfulness, enforcing boundaries. For some triggers, I have just stopped doing like toxic behaviors that I became aware of through therapy and cut out toxic relationships in my life. So before drinking was a big problem for me. And I still enjoy my glass of wine and all that, but I won't get drunk anymore. Going to a bar, having like men hit on you while you're drunk, that's a huge trigger for me.
Would
Yeah.
make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually read a very interesting book, and the name of it is Triggers.
Oh.
And it's interesting because the author is actually a business coach and he works with very, very successful people on their adult behavioral problems. But it's not always like something they need like psychologist type therapy for. It's just learning how to interact with people in a positive way. A
Mm.
lot of time these type A personality people are can be their interpersonal skills aren't always on par with their successes, right?
Yeah.
But this author, one of the things that he really focuses on is our environment and how every day our own environment is going to come up with triggers and we have to be aware of them and we have to be aware of the risk of them arising and then already having some type of plan be able to reverse the effect of those triggers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a huge part of that is structure. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why like so many of these self-help books and like therapy and so on, that's why they're so catered to a routine,
Yeah.
because the more there is structured, the less a trigger is going to trigger you, right? Because you're aware of what's going to happen throughout the day and what you have next.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what therapy does.
Yeah.
It gives you like kind of immunity.
Yeah. It's actually really neat that you say that because I was really scared to go into DBT and I was like, I might not be ready. Like, what if a crisis in my life happens? Because you never know when, something can happen. And they're like, the thing about therapy and DBT is you're in it Monday to Friday. There's not a lot of room for outside life. Like, and then on the weekends I work. So there's not a lot of room for me to, I don't know, have things come into my life where I'm going to be focusing attention on it a
Mm,
lot.
yeah. And like, you know that everything that is taking up a lot of your time is positive, right? Like it's
Mhm.
helping you mentally and physically get healthier.
Yeah.
So, is there any advice that you could offer anyone who's either struggled with sexual abuse or mental health issues that you could explain?
Yeah. I think a big problem with mental health help is the expense
Mm.
attached to it. So it's really expensive to get a psychologist, but there are a lot of free resources that people don't know their cities provide. So, for example, in Winnipeg, we have a place called Clinic that's completely free. It has sexual assault counselors, mental health counselors, addiction counselors. Um, so I would say just like there is help out there for everybody. Like you might feel like you're alone in it, but there are other people who've struggled with the same disorder, illness, struggles, and pain as you have. So you can find the right fit. I think it's hard to find the right fit at times, and at times I have had to leave a psychologist or a counselor because I didn't feel comfortable with them or I didn't feel like I was improving. But you have to not give up and you have to just be like, okay, like there is some type of help out there that
Mm-hmm.
can help me.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to someone that's scared of going to therapy?
Um, I would just be really real with them because I would appreciate that. Like it is scary. I hated therapy when I first went to it. I thought it was like the cheesiest thing ever. I was like, how is this gonna help me? Um, but I think you have to give it like a good few sessions for you to really start to see something. Like I don't know, it took me almost like 2 months before I believed it was starting to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I went because I was like, well, I'm on my last thread. Like, what else am I gonna do?
Well, thank you. Thank you so, so, so much for agreeing to do this and being so open. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had similar experiences or just needed to hear it from somebody who's been through it all and who's making the right choices in terms of making themselves better, right?
I
So,
love your guys' podcast, and I think what you guys are doing is amazing work.
Thank you. Um, was there anything else you would like to add?
Just like encouraging people to get help was the main message, I think.
Yeah, and it's so important.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.